If you've spent the last few evenings scrolling through endless pages of walking feet, trying to decide whether the extra cost is worth the hype, you're not alone. I've been there, staring at the zigzag walking foot on a handful of forums, wondering if it would actually stop my fabric from sliding when I'm quilting a 12-layer quilt top. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to walk you through the real-world experience of using the Consew 146RB2A1, point out where it shines, and flag the moments when it might feel like more of a gimmick than a gain. First off, let's talk about why a walking foot matters at all. When you're stitching heavy denim, leather, or multiple layers of batting, the standard feed dogs can't keep every layer moving in sync. The result is puckering, uneven seams, or that dreaded bunched-up look that makes you question every stitch. A walking foot essentially adds another set of rollers that move in concert with the feed dogs, gripping each layer and pulling it forward evenly. The Consew Zig Zag model is designed for exactly this purpose, to keep things smooth when you're tackling thick or slippery material. I tested the foot on a weekend quilting project, a 10-layer baby blanket made from a mix of cotton flannel and lightweight fleece. My usual setup without a walking foot left me with a few sections where the top layer lagged, creating tiny gaps in the seam. After snapping on the Consew foot, the feed felt noticeably steadier. The fabric layers didn't shift, and the stitching line stayed perfectly straight across the entire length of the blanket. That consistency saved me a lot of time that would otherwise have been spent realigning pieces. Now, who should consider buying this foot? If you're a quilter who frequently works with multiple layers, a sew-along maker who builds upholstery cushions, or a leather crafter who stitches heavy hides, the Consew walking foot offers a tangible advantage. It's also a solid addition for anyone who's tired of the classic feed dog grab-and-slip problem when sewing stretch fabrics like jersey or lycra. For those users, the foot becomes less of an accessory and more of a necessity. On the flip side, if your sewing wardrobe consists mostly of lightweight cotton shirts, simple repair jobs, or occasional buttonholes, you may not notice the difference. A standard presser foot will handle those tasks just fine, and the extra dollar, which can be a modest investment for a serious sewist but still a spend for a hobbyist, might feel unnecessary. Also, the foot is built for industrial-grade machines, so if you have a compact domestic model that doesn't accept the larger footplate, you'll run into compatibility issues right away. One practical strength of the Consew foot is the ease of installation. The attachment uses the standard screw pattern found on most Consew and a good number of other brands, so you can swap it in and out without fiddling with extra adapters. Once mounted, the foot rides smoothly, and the zigzag motion of the rollers does exactly what it claims. It pulls each layer forward in a synchronized rhythm. I noticed a subtle reduction in vibration on the machine's base, which translated to less fatigue during long sessions. That might sound minor, but when you're stitching for hours on a large quilt, any reduction in strain feels like a win. Another thing to keep in mind is the foot's weight. Because it houses a set of metal rollers and a sturdy housing, it adds a noticeable heft to the needle plate. If you're used to a light presser foot, you'll need to adjust the pressure settings on your machine to avoid feeding too aggressively. In my experience, a slight turn of the presser foot pressure knob was enough to keep the feed smooth without dragging the fabric. For beginners who haven't yet mastered pressure adjustments, that extra step can be a learning curve. A practical weakness I ran into was the foot's behavior on very smooth, low-friction surfaces like silk. While the walking foot excels with heavy, textured fabrics, it can actually overgrip on ultra-slick material, causing the foot to pull the fabric a fraction faster than the feed dogs. The result is a tiny stretch in the seam that isn't immediately obvious but becomes noticeable when you try to press the finished piece flat. The workaround is either to dial back the pressure or to switch back to a standard foot for those specific fabrics. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's a nuance worth knowing before you decide to use it for every project. Value-wise, the Consew Zig Zag Walking foot sits in a mid-range price bracket for sewing accessories. You're paying for a foot that's engineered to last, with metal components that can endure the torque of a heavy-duty machine. If you compare that to cheaper polymer alternatives, the durability difference becomes evident after months of heavy use. On the other hand, if you only need a walking foot for a single project, you might find a budget option that does the job, albeit with a shorter